guys. I know it's a weird angle. Sorry. Driving. But I thought I would take this opportunity to talk to you guys for a minute. I have to go pick up my daughter from school. She has an appointment this afternoon. And it's like a 15-minute drive, so I thought I'd take this time. That thing does not want to stay. It's a brand new thing. I don't know. Anyway, it's like a 15-minute drive, so I just thought I'd take this time to talk to you for a minute because I had mentioned in my introduction video that I suffer with anxiety and like OCD and things of that nature, and I wanted to talk about it for a couple of reasons. I feel like, people are talking about it a lot now, even though it wasn't something that was ever talked about a long time ago, which is good that people are talking about it now, but there's still a lot of things that I think that aren't really talked about a whole lot, and I think there's a lot of shame still with it. But the appointment that I'm taking my daughter to is a therapy appointment. This will be like her third time going, so we don't really know how well it's working just yet, but it's for her anxiety. And this thing is so stupid. So I was a kid in the 80s. In the 80s, anxiety was not a thing. No one talked about it. People didn't even use the word anxious, like not around me at least. And so I grew up thinking that I'm just this very strange kid that's not like anybody else. That is an awful angle. I'm not like anybody else that I know. People used to say, oh, you're just shy, you're shy. Which it's true, I am shy, but that still didn't explain anything else. Okay, sorry. I messed with the thing a little bit. I think I got it to kind of stay put temporarily, maybe? Anyway, what was I saying before? So, anxiety wasn't a thing in the 80s and 90s. It wasn't something people talked about. I did not know what anxiety was when I was a kid. I thought it was just shy kid that was weird, that I'm different than everyone else. How come nobody else thinks the way I do, acts the way I do, freaks out over things the way I do? All the other kids in my classes would, goof off and talk to each other and be happy-go-lucky and make friends easily, and that was not me. I didn't make friends easily. I was the quiet kid in class. I was always quiet. I also had an issue that I'd never seen anyone else do before, which is skin picking. And I don't just mean like picking at scabs, although I would do that, but to this day, still, I pick my lips. And I pick them and I pick them and I pick them. And I don't care how bad they hurt. I don't care how much they bleed. I still pick them. I still pick up my lips and I do it. I don't even realize a lot of times that I'm doing it. But I'll sit there and watch TV and I'll pick my lip. And I'll be talking to someone and I'll pick my lip or whatever. I'm just always doing it. And I found out after I had finally got diagnosed with anxiety that picking your lips as a kid, picking your lip as a kid is one of the first signs that your kid could have anxiety. And of course I don't blame my parents for this. I don't think that they even knew all these things. I mean, people didn't talk about anxiety, so this isn't something that they thought about or anything. But I felt very, very in my own world because I felt like no one understood me. I don't know why I do this. Why does no one else pick their lip? Why do I not ever want to talk to anybody? Why do I have a panic? As a kid, I didn't know what panic attacks were either, but I would have a panic attack over the slightest things. just the smallest thing. If I got called on in class or anything, and it would make me want to cry because I didn't know how to react. These days, a lot of times they say one of the biggest signs that a kid has anxiety is stomach aches. And that's true too. I think that when you're panicking, you get an upset stomach, and I still actually have that once in a while. But my daughter, I knew from the time she was 3 years old that this poor girl is going to go through everything I went through. And I knew that because I knew what I did as a kid and how I acted as a kid. But I knew how I acted as a kid. And as soon as I started seeing signs in her that she was doing similar things, I looked at my husband and I was like, oh no, she has it. She has OCD. Like, I didn't know the anxiety part yet, but I knew she had OCD. I have OCD. And everyone's OCDs are very different from each other. But me and my daughter have a very similar OCD. We do a lot of things the same. So we do a lot of things the same. And I think that one of the biggest issues is that people actually think that OCD is obsessive cleaning. Constantly washing your hands, constantly taking a shower, things of that nature. But that's one form of OCD, but that's not all OCD. Some people have like OCD with numbers, and they have to count a certain way. They have to count a certain number of things. They have to, that sort of thing. Some people have the kind where they have to touch something so many times before they are satisfied. And it's not something that people want. They don't want to do that. It's like an itch that you have to scratch is the best way to describe it. And if you don't scratch that itch, it just feels worse until you do scratch it. And that's what OCD is like. If we don't do this thing, and when you do it right now, it's gonna bother me a lot. So that's how I describe OCD. My OCD is mental and physical. My OCD is it's kind of all over the place. It's kind of like a lot of various things. Like, I don't like the number 6. As soon as I say it or think it, I have to think the number 7 immediately afterwards. I just did that. I don't count to that number. I skip it. Those types of weird things. I have to only step over cracks in the road or the sidewalk with my left foot only. It can never be my right foot. Just really weird things like that. But then I also have little tics that is also a form of anxiety and OCD. And so that is how I knew that my daughter had OCD. The first sign she showed of it was age 3. We had a dog cage that was like kind of in between the living room and the kitchen. And on the front of the cage, there was like this sticker. And every time she walked by it, she had to touch it with the same hand in the same manner every time. She could not walk by it at all, ever, without doing it exactly that same way every time. And I knew immediately that's what it was. And that wasn't a tic, that was just a thing that she did. But obviously she doesn't do that anymore, because OCD things can change over time. They can get worse, they can get better, you can get a new type of thing that you obsess over, because that's what it is, obsessive compulsion. You cannot help but do it. And when I was a kid, I blinked my eyes a lot, and I still do that sometimes. It just feels better to do it. I don't know how to describe that, and when I talk about it, it makes me want to do it. So that's one thing I would do that was physical, like a tic. I've done things where I kind of move my shoulder a little bit to, like, because it would feel good to do that, or just little things. But now here's the point I was trying to make about shame. Since no one talked about this stuff when I was younger, I thought there was something wrong with me, very, very wrong with me. And then I started hearing people talk about Tourette syndrome, and I thought, oh my God, I have that. I move and I don't want to move, and I do things that I don't want to do. And people actually, to my face, have asked me, do you have it? Do you have Tourette's syndrome? Which is so rude. Like, if you don't know somebody, a complete stranger, don't walk up to them and say that. And that made me feel even more shame, because I was like, I don't have that. That's not what's wrong with me. And at that time, I didn't know yet that I had anxiety and OCD. I still didn't know. I was in my early 20s. And it just made me feel awful. Like, fine, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I don't want anybody to know anything is wrong with me. So I'm going to do everything I can to hide myself and to not do things in front of people or whatever. Then when I got diagnosed with anxiety and OCD, it made me want to research it more, and I've learned that the OCD that I do with my numbers, or my left foot, or my left hand, or my whatever, that's not the only thing. It's twitches, it's little ticks. That's also OCD. It's not Tourette syndrome. And it made me feel so much better about myself. Like, not that there's something wrong with having Tourette syndrome, but to think that you have one thing and feel shamed about it, to find out that that's actually not what you have. You have something else, is what made me feel relieved, because I finally knew what was wrong and I could do something about it. I do take anxiety medicine. It doesn't really help with my OCD, but it does help me with anxiety. And my daughter, even though I would tell her pediatrician ever since she was really little that I think she has anxiety, I know she has it, she wouldn't be able to sleep at night. She would get frequent stomach aches. Part of her anxiety OCD is feeling extreme guilt for things that she has absolutely no control over, but she would feel guilty and think she's a bad person for absolutely no reason at all. And it wasn't until this year, the end of last year, that we brought it up to the doctor again, and the doctor finally agreed to put her on an anxiety medicine. And I thought it was always that the doctor didn't believe me that she had it. She'd always say that she's too young, this and that. But the doctor's like, oh no, I know she's always had it. I didn't want to put her on medication yet. So on the one hand, I was like, wow, you knew all this time that she had it and you didn't want to help her. But on the other hand, I was like, finally. And I think she doesn't think the anxiety medicine really helps. I do. I think it helps her. But part of that was also the doctor wanted her to start therapy for it, which, talk about her anxieties and things like that. So that's where we're getting ready to go today, is to the therapist. This will be her third appointment. I just wanted to talk about this because I feel like people do still feel shame about this stuff. Like, I do still get embarrassed over certain OCD things that I do that are noticeable, and I feel ashamed of myself or embarrassed, or I still think about the day in my early 20s when someone was like, oh, you have Tourette's, don't you? That still affects me. It still bothers me because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I wish I knew what was wrong with me. I'm just glad I do finally know what's wrong with me, but I don't want people to ever feel ashamed of a mental illness or whatever you want to call it, because we all have something. No one has a perfect brain or a perfect body or perfect health. Everyone has something that they're going through, so you can't judge others based on how they look or how they act, as far as mental illness, you know. I just think it's important for people to be more kind to others, because I was that kid who thought there's so much wrong with me and everyone else in the world is normal but me. I'm the only person who's not normal, and it's not fair. And now that it's talked about and mental health is a big thing now, I'm glad for that. I'm glad that I finally know what's wrong with me, and I don't have to feel so ashamed of talking about it or explaining to someone, oh, I did that because of this. I don't know. I just felt like I had this long drive over here, so I was like, well, I kind of want to talk about this because we're taking Savannah to the therapist today for her anxiety. I'm hoping that therapy helps her. I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. We'll see down the line how it goes. I don't know why she's not out yet, but I hope that everyone kind of learns something from this video a little bit, some sort of takeaway about not feeling ashamed or making somebody else feel ashamed for something. Maybe learned a little something about how anxiety or OCD works, and maybe know someone who has this and it'll help you understand them more. I just think it's important to be kind and compassionate to other people. You never know what other people are going through, and the worst thing you can do is make somebody feel ashamed for something that they can't help. And I'm just really glad that if my daughter has to have this like I do, I'm glad I have it too, so that I can be there for her and I can help explain it to her. I can relate to her on it. I can understand where she's coming from and what she's talking about, because I go through the same thing. We go through a lot of the exact same OCDs and anxieties. If all my life I had to go through that to be able to help my daughter go through it, then it was all worth it. And I'm glad I can be someone she can talk to, and someone who can understand her the way no one else maybe will. But this thing is very long. So give me some feedback. Let me know if you've ever felt this way, or if you've ever had similar OCDs or anxieties, and maybe we can start a conversation. She's texting me, so I'm gonna get off here. Talk to you later, guys. So we're back. Savannah's in the car with me now, and so I thought I would have her put her 2 cents in on the whole subject matter, and we'll see what she has to say about anxiety and OCD and how it affects her personally.
On my way to therapy.
But we were just talking about it on the way here a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm gonna eat this ball.
I don't know what to start with.
Well, we were talking about it on the way here about when she first started feeling it. Like, I said that we noticed her OCD at 3, but her anxiety didn't really show up until around age 8.
Yeah, like, at least for, like, when I started, like, noticing, like, changes in myself. Like, I started having, like, sleep issues and stuff. Like, I couldn't fall asleep and my mind would just run. And a lot of it stemmed from, like, feeling guilty. Like, I would just think about, like, everything that happened in my day and, like, everything I did wrong or whatever. And it kind of started when my great-grandma died, because, like, the last time I saw her, I didn't know it was going to be the last time. And so, like, my brother was, like, saying bye and being all sweet or whatever, and I was older, but I just was like, bye, because I just wanted to go. And I was like, I just wanted to go. I don't know. And so I felt really guilty for that. And so, like, I beat myself up for it for, like, years. And that's, like, literally why I couldn't sleep. Like, I just, like, it ran through my mind, like, over and over again. And I was like, oh, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I feel so bad, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, part of me kind of would say, like, think, like, oh, God's punishing me for being rude. I'm not even kidding. But yeah, so I would just have sleep problems and I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. And I still have that today. Like, I take melatonin to sleep because, like, I can't really fall asleep. And if I don't take it, I wake up in the middle of the night, like, a few times, too. Because, like, I mean, I guess you could say I'm a light sleeper. I don't know. But, yeah.
Yeah. I think that was the one thing that caused your first, like, guilt issues.
Mm-hmm.
I think that started it. And then it just kind of spiraled out of control from there. Like, then once you learn to forgive yourself for that, however many years later,
Yeah.
you would find other things to feel guilty about.
Yeah, the guilt is a whole thing. That's, like, another reason why, like, I'm super indecisive. And part of it is, like, a guilt thing. Like, I don't know what it is. I just feel guilty over everything. And everything goes back to, I'm a terrible person. Like, every time something bad happens to me, like, even if it's something that I shouldn't get that upset about, it gets me really down because then I feel like a terrible person. And so, yeah. Or, like, whenever I do just feel like a human emotion, like I'm upset or something, I'm like, oh, great, I'm manipulating people because I'm upset. Like, I'm not supposed to be upset. Like, it's fake. I'm being fake and, like, dumb. And I'm a liar and I'm dumb.
Yeah.
And
all that self-loathing.
Yeah.
But everyone is entitled to their own feelings. And everyone should be allowed to feel their own feelings. Whatever the feelings are.
Except I've never felt that way. Like, my whole life, every time I'm upset, I feel guilty for being upset. I feel like I'm, like, overreacting or something, you know, like, over dramatic or just, like, I'm being crazy. Which I actually heard is something that a lot of, like, obviously, like, a lot of people with anxiety, like, deal with, I guess.
I think...
It's, like, feeling that you're crazy.
Oh, yeah. But I think that as you get older, I think that strong guilty feelings might start to go away a little bit. I think that part will get easier, you know?
At the moment, it's coming back, though. I don't know. Whenever something bad happens to me, that's when I just get super down. I have, like, ups and downs, you know? Like, for a few months, I'll be, like, super good, and then I'll go in, like, a spiral for the next few months. Sometimes my OCD is really good, and I'm, like, have, like, no compulsions or anything. And that's another thing, is, like, my obsessions go with my anxiety. But anyway.
I was saying earlier how me and you have very similar OCD to each other.
Yeah. Sometimes my compulsions go away for a long time, like, I won't do any of them, and then all of a sudden they'll just come back and they'll be, like, worse than ever, and it'll be the same ones, different ones, like, new things, and then, like, new things to worry about, because then I have the obsessions, and then my anxiety, and then I avoid situations, which is the biggest thing. It's the worst thing I can do for myself. But I avoid situations all the time whenever I get scared of them.
Yeah. I'm glad that we do have very similar anxieties and OCD, especially OCDs, because then we can bounce our OCDs off each other, like, oh, you do that, oh, I do that too. That makes me feel, like, not so weird. And
it's still, like, I still feel weird about it. Like, I don't like explaining my compulsions because I feel like they're so like, I feel like even other people with OCD don't understand because they're so different from other people's, in my opinion.
I said that too. Like, everyone's are very different, and I have never told anyone my OCDs except for you, because and I've been with my husband for almost 20 years, and he still is like, oh, you don't have OCD, but I hide it from him. Like, I don't
like talking about it.
I don't like talking about it, so I don't tell people what I do, except for Savannah, because she really understands it, because she goes through the same thing.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of the same exact OCDs as each other.
Yeah.
So she gets it. She understands. And I explained it as, like, it's like an itch that you have to scratch, and if you don't do it, it feels worse.
Yeah. Like, it's 2020, so, like, I've never really been embarrassed about my anxiety or anything, or, like, the fact that I have OCD. Like, I've never felt embarrassed about it because it's, like, something that's, like, everyone knows about now. But, like, I don't really talk about, like, how like, what exactly goes through my mind with my OCD, because it's a super embarrassing, like, thing. I mean, even also, I was, like, researching it for a project, and people who have, like, impulsive thoughts or intrusive thoughts or whatever, those are also embarrassing to say, because a lot of people, like, someone that had OCD said that they had intrusive thoughts that, like, they were lesbian even though they weren't. Like, they knew that they weren't in the back of their head, but, like, they kept telling themselves, like, oh, you're checking that person out. Oh, you, like them. Even though they didn't.
It's called
like
irrational. It's called intrusive thoughts because it's intruding your mind. You don't want to think these things, and you're not trying to think these things. It's like something that pops in your head and it doesn't go away.
Or terrible things that you like.
Terrible things.
Like,
yeah,
I think the most common one is like your family dying or something. Like, you just like picture it.
Yeah.
Like, you imagine those things.
Yeah. Which sounds really crazy to people who don't experience these things, but the thing about not having shame or shaming others is that this is what people like us go through, and we don't want to talk about those types of things because it sounds crazy. It sounds ridiculous, and we know that.
Yeah.
But we also can't exactly help it. Like, these things pop in our head, and we have to think it, we have to do it, we have to say it, whatever it is.
Yeah, but then you feel like guilty for the intrusive thoughts because then you're like, oh, great, I'm just a bad person for thinking that. Like,
and
I'm a psycho. Why would I think about that? Like, why do I think about that all the time or imagine that?
Yeah. Well, we're going to head into her appointment now, and I will be sitting in the waiting room for an hour with nothing to do, which is always so fun.
By the way, they marked it as a doctor's on my pass.
Because I said doctor.
Oh, you didn't say therapy?
I didn't call into school and say, yeah, my daughter has a therapy appointment today.
Because a lot of people don't usually miss
Did you
school
see me?
for that either. What?
I was like trying to do a phone, and I was like, I'm retarded.
You don't know how to work your fingers.
No, I don't. My daughter has a therapy appointment today.
That's what she said.
So.
Did you hear me?
That's what she said?
Yeah.
Savannah, you say that so often.
Okay, but it makes sense.
Okay. We're going to go now. Hit subscribe, hit like, leave a comment, and I will talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.